I spent 10 years working at ITV Daytime, and I can pinpoint the exact moment where they lost the plot. And it did relate to Ms. Meghan Markle, who had formed an incredibly close relationship with Tom Bradby, the presenter of ITV News, who wields a lot of power at that organisation. And he was going to war with Piers Morgan.
If you worked inside ITV for a decade like the speaker here did, you'd have had a front row seat to the slow collapse of a broadcasting giant. And according to this insider, the exact moment ITV lost the plot wasn't some random budget cut or technical flop. It was Meghan Markle. Why? Because Meghan wasn't just a royal bride making headlines. Behind the scenes, she had cozy ties with Tom Bradby, the powerful ITV News anchor who saw her as almost untouchable.
More trouble for the mainstream media. I can reveal Good Morning Britain is in crisis as ratings plummet and executives consider a shock plan to merge the failing morning show, which has never recovered since the loss of Piers Morgan, who, remember, was forced out after he accused Meghan Markle for lying on air when she lied on air. But they want to merge it with woke ITV News, meaning that Tom Bradby and the awful work that he does will be in charge of this Good Morning Britain show. Now, you can imagine this has caused shockwaves all throughout the morning broadcaster. Look, I worked at ITV Daytime for years. There are hundreds of staff there, hundreds of staff. It is a bloated organisation that absolutely needs to be fundamentally shaken up. But this merger with ITV News, I think, is really bad news in a whole load of ways, because ITV News is even worse than Good Morning Britain, if you can believe it. So let me take you through the stories. Exclusive. This was revealed by TV Zone. Good Morning Britain set for merger with ITV News. ITV are in talks to merge its flagship breakfast show, Good Morning Britain, with its news offering, ITV News, which is produced by ITN. Then GB News went on to report that ITV GMB's future is in doubt as staff receive an email over an unsettling and stressful development. This comes as GMB recently came under scrutiny from Nigel Farage and his supporters for a biased interview. They report that GB News has seen an email sent to Good Morning Britain staff who are members of the National Union of Journalists, and they published this email, Dear All letter, which is, of course, very worrying. And a source was quoted in the media as saying ITV is really tightening their belt. There have been concerns for months at the top, but now that it's trickled down to the shop floor, it feels very depressing. A lot of staff are being put on 3-month contracts, probably so they can get rid of people easily. But of course, the bigger issue is that we are no longer forced to tune into a broadcaster like this who looks down on us, who doesn't really understand our issues, and nothing summed that up better than Susanna Reid completely dismissing the concerns that the vast majority of ordinary Brits have about mass uncontrolled immigration.
Do you feel like a stranger on your island?
Well, I live in the most diverse city in the UK, London.
We're in it now.
And I don't feel like a stranger.
No.
I feel like I'm in a really rich,
vibrant,
multicultural society.
In London, I live in...
But am I out of touch with people who this phrase is going to chime with? Because I don't really understand.
Bradby, the story goes, started pushing Protect Meghan at all costs, even going head-to-head with Piers Morgan, then the biggest name on ITV's Good Morning Britain. That set the stage for a showdown, Bradby and the woke ITV News team versus Piers Morgan and anyone who dared question Meghan. And in the end, Meghan won, at least inside ITV.
Dr. Philip Kazali, this is, I think, the beginning of the end of not just Good Morning Britain, but also woke ITV News. These are bloated organisations. For so many years, Philip, they have been totally exposed for lying, for being out of touch. I mean, look at their revolting coverage throughout the COVID pandemic, for example, where they peddled the establishment narrative, never questioned the government, and have never admitted they were wrong on so many levels. They got Brexit wrong. They got Boris Johnson wrong. Now they're getting Nigel Farage and immigration wrong. I mean, this can no longer exist as a behemoth organisation when people are simply not tuning in.
Yeah, it's almost like I was just watching that then, and I just couldn't help but laugh because he chimed in the word vibrant, didn't he? You know, and if you could think of a worse cliche, then please do tell me. But I honestly can't think of a worse cliche. The problem is this model is so out of date. It's almost like a pre-war model that's still running at the beginning of the 1960s. In other words, it's a completely different era now to what it was 10, 15 years ago, whatever, when this show first started. And I have to admit, like probably like most of your viewers, Dan, I don't think I've ever seen it. Right, and I don't think I ever will now because it's obviously going to go. It's an establishment narrative. People are so much better informed now because people are not tied to public service broadcasters anymore, so they can see the lies. You know, but the real problem is they don't even hide the lies anymore. They just blatantly lie. And it's almost Orwellian watching this stuff. You know, it's almost watching like a telescreen in 1984. And you have all of this stuff coming into, you will adore mass immigration. You will listen to us. You will, ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears and what's going on around you. It's time that this show and terrestrial television generally really was dumped because nothing serves us. Nothing fits us. I remember a few years ago when I stopped listening to the BBC, ITV and all of that stuff. I used to wake up at 6:30 in the morning. My alarm used to go off and it used to be the Today programme. And I'd be, when you were in and out of sleep and you'd be kind of coming to, and all of this stuff would be going into me and it'd be kind of like telling me off for being white, male, heterosexual, all of those things. Right. And I realized that I was miserable for the first part of the day because of all of this stuff. So I just stopped listening to it. And practically everybody I know, nobody bothers with this stuff anymore.
No, it's
because
so freeing. That is such a brave, freeing moment. So it happened to me when I left GB News. And I just thought, I am no longer going to be dictated anymore by a mainstream media that I know to be corrupt because I was working in it for such a long time. And so I stopped reading the newspapers. I stopped looking at the mainstream media unless I was specifically researching something. And it was brilliant. My whole world opened up and I absolutely loved going full throttled into the independent media. And my recommendation to everyone is stop paying the BBC license fee. Use that money to support independent journalists who you respect because that's how we create our own independent media system. However, I do just want to talk a little bit about what has gone wrong at woke ITV, Philip, because I spent 10 years.
If you strip away the anger, the core point here is about trust. ITV lost trust the moment it stopped allowing debate and started enforcing narratives. Whether you agree with Piers Morgan or not, his departure showed viewers that ITV would rather protect Meghan Markle than protect free speech. That decision sent a signal. We don't care what you think. We'll tell you what to think. And Brits, famously stubborn, said, fine, we'll switch you off.
Working at ITV Daytime, and I can pinpoint the exact moment where they lost the plot. And it did relate to Ms. Meghan Markle, who had formed an incredibly close relationship with Tom Bradby, the presenter of ITV News, who wields a lot of power at that organisation. And he was going to war with Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain, and also myself. I was working on the Lorraine Kelly show, trying to control us, trying to make sure that we would not provide any negative coverage of Meghan Markle. Now, to me, it wasn't negative coverage, Philip. It was just the truth. I was reporting the truth, which is there was this huge breakdown going on within the royal family, and Meghan Markle was causing massive issues with the Queen, the late Queen, Prince William, and I had to report the truth. And I was given an ultimatum one day, which was, you've got to stop saying negative things about Meghan Markle. I refused and I quit. And then you'll remember what happened just a few months later. Alex Beresford, in an on-air ambush of Piers Morgan, challenged him parroting the Meghan Markle narrative. Meghan Markle then complained to the chief executive of ITV, a woman called Carolyn McCall, incredibly woke, used to be the boss of The Guardian, when Piers had claimed that Meghan Markle lied about being suicidal in her interview with Oprah Winfrey. Now, my reporting of that story makes it abundantly clear that Meghan Markle had lied. Piers Morgan quit after Meghan Markle pressured ITV to dictate its editorial policy. At that point, Philip, ITV was over as a news organization. As soon as you allow the people who you are covering to provide the narrative and to make editorial decisions for you, it's over, isn't it? That was the moment when Good Morning Britain was finished. Because remember, Piers Morgan had taken the show to record highs. It was beating BBC Breakfast in the ratings. That has never, in the new woke iteration, it has never come close.
The proposed merger of Good Morning Britain with ITV News is just the latest symptom of a broadcaster in decline. It won't solve the problem because the problem isn't the format, it's a credibility. Unless ITV regains the courage to report without fear or favor, it will keep bleeding viewers. So, to sum it all up in a conversational nutshell,
no, and you're not a current affairs show, you're not a news show, you're just a propaganda outlet at that point, okay? And there's something very clear here, isn't it? You've used this word woke a couple of times, and you're absolutely correct. It's about skin color. This is, Meghan Markle's skin color. So we absolutely have to champion everything she does, and we have to tell lies about her. We have to present her in a positive light because she's got brown skin, okay? And the royal family, which are the old establishment and have white skin and are terrible, so we have to make sure they're negative. It's so simplistic. It's such an insult to the intelligence, okay? And it's part of this broader social engineering that you are actually trying, on the one hand, to present Meghan Markle as either someone who is just brilliant in every way, okay, or someone who is a victim. And this is possibly the most privileged person on earth. She's certainly in the top 5 or 10. Okay, she definitely is not a victim. But when you can only think about race, gender, sexuality, all of these things, when these things dictate absolutely everything, and news and truth don't matter at all, then you will go down that route. And this is why I say the whole model is over. It's finished. Mainstream television, terrestrial television, who cares? Who watches it? It's nonsense, Dan, because it's not only what we see, but it's people like you. And, I've done some stuff in terrestrial television as well, but only interviews. But you can see it. You've got so many stories, it's just there. And now, as I say, people know that. They know what's going on. And the situation isn't just that people are fed up. They are more than fed up, okay? It's the government, it's the institutions, it's the mainstream media. All those three things are acting together to try and keep people down, right? It's more than just a narrative, okay? They are frightened. They are actually frightened of us because we are so angry at what's going on with the other stories, angry at what's happening in our cities, angry at what's happening to our wives and children, angry about all of these things, okay, which come down to things like mass immigration, terrible government policy, okay, and they are terrified that we are in the foothills of civil war. I think it's that bad, okay, so they're pushing us back and pushing us back. We saw this last year with Southport, didn't we, when people were so
absolutely
about what's happening. And those people were immediately called, it's the same thing, isn't it? They were immediately called far right. They were immediately called neo-Nazis. They were called criminals before they were prosecuted, and they were thrown in prison. And one person, Peter Lynch, has actually died in prison. So this is what's happening. The government are running scared, okay? And they're using phrases like islands of strangers. That's a Labour Prime Minister is saying that. That's how scared they are. And they should be scared, because what they've done over the last 30 years is nothing short of criminal.
Couldn't agree more. And by the way, we will never forget. That's why it doesn't matter what Starmer says in that speech. We will never forget what he called us, how he derided us, the lies that he told, the punishments that he personally inflicted on, as you say, really good people like Peter Lynch and Lucy Connolly and Julie Sweeney, who remained behind bars. We will never forget that. And so that's why it's all well and good Starmer going up in a Downing Street press conference and reluctantly invoking the language of Enoch Powell. But it's meaningless because we will not forget what he did. And also, he will be judged by results, and the results are absolutely appalling. He hasn't smashed the gangs. The invasion of the channel is at record numbers. And of course, he hasn't even put any type of numeric goal on how much he wants to cut net migration. So I think you're completely right to make that point. But it's so disappointing to see mainstream media organizations that I did previously have faith in. I didn't think they were perfect, but trust me, I wouldn't have worked at ITV for 10 years if I didn't think it had something to offer. It used to be the channel of the people. Now it is the channel of the elite class, and as a result, it is finished. Finished.
Meghan Markle became the lightning rod that exposed ITV's editorial cowardice. Tom Bradby and the woke ITV News team backed Meghan, while Piers Morgan got thrown under bus. Good Morning Britain's ratings collapsed after Piers left, and they've never recovered. Staff are panicked as mergers loom and jobs on the line. Viewers switched off because ITV ignored their concerns and pushed elite narratives. Independent media is thriving because people want authenticity, not propaganda. ITV's biggest mistake was turning into the channel of the elite instead of the people. And the bitter irony? Meghan Markle, the woman ITV bent over backward to protect, isn't even in Britain anymore. She's in California, sipping rosé in her Montecito mansion. But the wreckage she left behind still haunts ITV every morning when it looks at the empty chairs where viewers used to sit.